What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new, welcome to the Athletes Resilience Center podcast, where we talk all things mental performance in sports. I am your host, Brandon Zachary, with my co-host, Matt Owens. Matt, how are we doing today?
Can't complain, brother. I'm excited for another good episode, man.
Good, awesome. And then today we're going to talk about what the title says, the alter ego effect. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about what it is, kind of why it works, and then some usages that Matt and I have both utilized throughout our coaching and playing careers. And then also some professional athletes that use it as well. It's a really cool topic, and I think it's something that's super vital to a lot of athletes. I think it provides a cool layer of competitive drive and energy that they can go in and use. So definitely a cool topic, and I'm excited to go back and forth today with Matt about how we use it and how effective it can be. So to start, I can kind of just talk about what the alter ego effect is. Basically, what the alter ego effect is creating this alternate persona, this alter ego, as they say, that is a different version of yourself. Now, this could be when I play baseball, I'm X. When I am in my personal life, I am Y, right? So for me, it's like, okay, in my day-to-day life, I'm Brandon. On the mound, I am a different entity entirely. Now, why would people do this, right? That's a big question. Why would you create this completely different persona, this completely different ego when you're out on the mound, when you're out playing your sport, when you're out doing something different outside of your personal life? Well, there's a lot of things that you have in your personal life that can kind of drag you down a little bit in your professional life, your competitive life, right? So there's a lot of limiting beliefs that you may have. There's a lot of history, a lot of emotions that might be tied to things in your personal life and connections that you have there that can bleed out to the playing field when you go and compete, when you go and coach, when you go and, present, when you go and do anything. So creating this alternate persona helps you establish, okay, this is kind of the person that I want to be, and this is the competitive drive I want to have, and this is how I'm going to channel it that way. So I know I spent a little bit of time explaining. I'm going to kick it back to Mo because we talked about this in a previous episode when you were talking about your presentation at the ABCA convention. I don't think you used the word the alter ego effect specifically, but you talked about when you were roaming around, you were kind of talking to coaches, you're learning, you're taking notes, you described yourself as Clark Kent, and then when you went on to present for yourself, you put on the uniform, and when you put on that uniform, you turn into Superman, which I think is a really cool analogy and perspective, right? So can you go into explain to us why you personally did that and how you found that helpful?
Yeah, I think from one standpoint, like when you're there, you're kind of there to do two different things. One, you might be there to present. The other, you're there to kind of like learn and kind of soak in information and just kind of connect with people and everything. And I think for myself, I've been there before. Doing the connections, trying to learn as much as I possibly can. So when it came time to like get on stage, I'm like, I have to be in a baseball uniform, and like putting on that uniform, you're competing, right? And so like I think it kind of helped shift the mind frame that I'm like, I'm competing, like I'm trying to like get my point across, but I'm also like trying to give my best performance possible. Whereas like when I'm not in the uniform, I'm not really performing. I'm not really competing or anything like that. And so like when I kind of like walked around, it was like I just kind of felt like myself. I felt like Matt. And then I was like when I go on stage, I'm like it's bright lights. I'm like something I've never done before. So I'm like I need to kind of kick it into a different gear. And like we talked a lot on this podcast before about like you take off the uniform and it's like you're something else. And like for me that stays true even through performing, through coaching, through teaching, everything of that nature. And so like that's kind of why I was like, I feel like Superman when I put on that uniform because I'm like I'm ready to go, I'm ready to get after it and everything like that.
Now, I think a big criticism that I've seen or heard about like the ideology of the alter ego effect or having this other persona when you're out doing your thing, competing, presenting, whatever it may be, that there's this, I guess, criticism that it kind of suggests you being fake to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Because you're like, okay, well, I'm trying to build this persona that is separate from your personal life, right? So that can be viewed as fake. Now, I'd like to hear your opinion on that because, as far as my opinion on it, I think the beautiful thing about the alter ego effect is you're not creating a completely new person. It's utilizing the best traits of yourself for that competitive experience, right? So it's like I don't think you can just come out of thin air and act like someone completely brand new and disregard everything from your personal life, right? I think it's taking pieces from what you implement in your personal life and whatever skills, whatever mindset that you have there, you can take and create this new persona that's like, okay, this is still me. It's just a different version of me, right? Like when I was pitching, teammates, friends, a lot of people call me Bezak. So it was like off the field, I'm Brandon. As a student, I'm Brandon. As a coworker, I'm Brandon. But on the mound, I am Bezak, which is still me. We're the same entity, but when I'm on the mound, everything that Brandon does is on the side, right? Now I'm this new being going into competing and trying to get a drive that way. So I guess from your perspective, from a coaching perspective, from presenting, like you said, at a coach's conference, like how do you overcome that criticism of like, oh, are you faking it? Or is this like a fake identity you're trying to create?
Yeah, I think like you said, you're pulling the best traits of yourself or I guess the necessary traits from yourself that it takes for you to go out and like compete, right? And I think, how you can kind of make it not, I guess, be fake is just like, would you take that version of yourself into another environment, right? Like if I'm Bezak, right? I'm yelling in my glove, I'm getting hype, I'm getting angry and everything. I'm very animated, like I'm trying to push pressure, off the mound and everything like that. Like you go into the workplace, can Bezak be in the workplace, right? Like, right, probably not. Like, you know, you turn in a report and all of a sudden you start yelling at your boss, like, how you like that, right? Like, it's not going to fly. So it's like, it's not necessarily fake, but it's doing what's necessary in that environment, right? And like, it kind of helps heighten your performance, not only in that environment, but in that particular instance and everything like that. Because, you're not Bezak on the bench, you're Bezak on the mound, right? Like when you're doing that piece of competition, right? Like you don't get Sunday Tiger on Friday. You don't get Sunday Tiger on Thursday, right? Like it's for that moment. Like how can you capture that moment? So it's not fake. It's more like rising to the challenge or rising to that opportunity and taking advantage of like what you have in front of you like at that moment. But how you react in that situation can't be used everywhere you go, right? Like you can't be this version of yourself in the workplace. You can't be this version of yourself driving a car, right? You have to be able to kind of like distance yourself from that. And so when you get to that competition part, traits where like you might be a studious guy, you might be, quiet or whatnot, it might not work in a different environment. So you got to be able to kind of distance the two and everything.
Yeah, and I think you can create multiple personas. Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, this is the one I created and now I have to use that in baseball in my professional life in X, Y, and Z, right? Like I'm sure you just being around you and knowing you, like there is some overlap between you as a coach and you as a player, but there's also huge differences, right? And then there's huge differences from that mat to the mat off the field, right? Like I think it's the same with me, whether I'm in coach mode, whether, I was on the mound, whether I'm in the classroom, whether I am giving a presentation at work, right? Like, I do think you can kind of mold each place of your life to have its own persona in that sense, right? And I think we've talked about this with, like, we talked about this with DC a little bit. We talked about this with Semple a little bit. We talked about with Hayden a little bit, like a lot of these guys that we've had on, where separating the playing and the personal life also is very, I think, healthy, right? Like if you're in that competitive mode at all times, like you're just like fiending for competition and you need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's like, I couldn't be in that state for that long. You know, I saw an interview. I think it was Dallas Braden did with Logan Webb, and they were talking about like Dallas Braden's word, not mine. He was like, you know, when you go out there, you have a little bit of like, fuck you out there. Like, that's your mindset, right? And he's like, yes, but it took him a while to get to the point where it's like, I had that competitive drive, but, you know, it's when I'm on the mound, it's when I'm between those lines is when it snaps. He's like,
Right.
I tried to do it where, he said, I tried to do it where that game day, like, the whole day I was in that zone where it's like, that's how I'm going to be. He's like, at the end of the day, I was exhausted. It's like you're in that constant state. And like if you're a guy like that, that's high energy, high emotion, like you're in a state of fight or flight basically from
Right.
the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. It's like I know just from personal experience, like I was a guy that played with a lot of emotion. It's, you know, heart rate's pumping. I really am trying to leave it all out there, but like you need like 2 hours at least after the game to like decompress and like let the heart rate come down and let yourself like actually get back to, you know, my personal life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're in that state all day, one, it's hard to maintain, right? Like you can go in and out, and that's the complete opposite of what we're trying to strive for here, right? Like if you're like on my start day, I'm going to be this separate entity completely. Like how can you, like, say you're a college pitcher, how can you like go to class that morning, how can you like go to the dining hall that day, and like you're in that competitive state. It's like you can't be productive, right? And that doesn't mean you're not excited for the day, but it's once you walk on that field, and everyone's different, right? Like you hear stories, some guys the whole day they need, like, the way that they operate is they need to be completely focused the whole day. But I just think when you're talking about the persona, like the creating that alter ego, it's got to be in portions that are sustainable, right? Like you can't be in that whole persona for a week. Like you got to take it for what it is, right? During competition, I'm this. During my personal life, I'm this. I actually had he wasn't my teammate, but he graduated a year before I got to TCNJ. His name's Scotty Kelly. He's playing independent ball, and he's playing for Team Ireland, I believe, in the World Baseball Classic. So shout out Scotty. But he came to a practice when he was still like training in spring training for indie ball, and he was at a practice, and he was talking to me, and he was like, you know, you got really good stuff, man. You got good stuff. And he's like, the thing that is going to take you to the next level, and I don't even think he called it the alter ego effect. And he's like, it's the mindset shift when you get between the lines, right? He said, off the field, right? You're Brandon, you're in your personal life, like you have all these friends, you're doing all these things, you're getting lunch with your buddies, you're hanging out with your family, X, Y, and Z. And he's like, once you step between those lines, though, he's like, you're now B. You're whatever you want to call yourself, right? You're in this completely different world, right? You're a different person at that point. That's literally how he described it. And I remember that was the first time where I was like, that's like a really interesting point, because you know you try to get that competitiveness, and you're like, I'm going to take this into everything I do, and it's so draining. You can't hold on to that, and you get like it drags on for too long, and you can get worn down by it. You know, like the way he put it was just so simple. It was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's just a switch that flips, and then once you're done for the day, the switch flips off, and you're ready to go back into your personal life. You know, like it's such it's a crazy concept at first, but the way he put it out was so like simple and helpful. He's like, that's the way I go about it, and I think that's the way a lot of successful people go about it.
Yeah, I think you said something super important, like in that Dallas Braden Logan Webb like interview, like he says like when I get between those lines, and like if you listen to like a lot of sports interviews, you'll hear a lot of guys go like when I step on that court, like when I get in between those lines, when I set foot on that field, like it's some people might not have a name for it, like
Yeah,
they might not be Sunday Tiger, they might not be the Black Mamba, but like it is that mind shift when you get in the competitive environment where it's like, okay, like I was this and now I stepped in between those lines, like it's time for this, right? And so it's just about like you said, like taking those best traits and just letting it unfold, or those necessary traits, just letting it unfold like in that moment and everything. And I think Sky Kelly, wise beyond his years, right? He's fresh out of college. He's letting you know that right away. I mean, it's super important. It's something that like I think a lot of people might not know about, like, or might not be able to like, I guess, code it, right? Like, yeah, unless you read the book or you've heard other people talk about it, you might not know it's called like the alter ego effect. But you're just like, when I do this, I become X, Y, and Z, and it's something that's super cool to be able to do, and it takes time to actually like grow it, right? So like, how did you go after that conversation? How did you become Bezak like on the mound? How did it kind of take shift and shape form for you?
Yeah, I think I did it before that, just unknowingly. But I think the difference was what Scotty said to me hit harder because previously I was so attached to the results of how I was doing in college that it would affect me in my personal life. Where the way Scotty laid it out was like, you know, they're separate, right? Like they're completely separate at all times. And when I'm in high school, right? Like I feel like that's when I really started to get like a competitive drive for this. Was like, okay, like we talked about it. You and I were injured and then coming back from injury, training like as hard as I've ever trained before, right? Like getting ready, preparing, and going into my senior season for high school, and like with travel when we were playing with like Frank and the Bulldogs and all those guys, like my competitiveness would come out, but I do think sometimes it would bleed still into my personal life. And I'm not saying like what I mean is like everything that I did, I'm like, oh, I have to be ultra competitive, I got to do X, Y, and Z. But just like if I didn't perform well, then my personal life would suffer because of that. Or if I did perform well, it's like, oh, great, everything's fine and dandy. So it's like, okay, that persona is slowly getting created, right? Like, okay, I do see a mental shift here. Like, something definitely switched and I'm feeling it. And I feel this level of power when I'm out there on the mound between the lines, right? Like, I feel that. And part of that leaks into your personal life a little bit, which I think is good when you get that feeling. It's like, okay, I feel like I'm being the truest version of myself in that sense. But the thing is, you take the good with the bad. And, if you're an emotional guy, if you're a guy that tries to give it everything they got and it doesn't work, that can easily bleed over into your personal life as well, right? And you might feel like, I let my team down, I'm terrible, blah, 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 on the mound, and that can bleed over into your personal life. So I think slowly over time, right? Freshman year of college, I think, I honestly don't think during my college career I probably ever mastered it, I'd say, but I think my senior year is when it really started to click a little bit more of like separating the two. And I think a lot of that had to do with too a little bit of maturity, a little bit of valuing the time that you have off the field with your guys, because you're going to graduate and it's like these are some of my best friends, these are like my brothers that I play with. Like you got to appreciate the time spent off the field as much as you do on the field, so it was a little bit easier to split it up. And I think from there was when it kind of settled in a little bit. I think it definitely takes a lot of time. And I think for me, the hardest thing was the separation of the two. Like, I think I was able to create a separate persona earlier, but it's just navigating when to turn it on and when to turn it off, Like, and again, like I'm saying, I don't think I was in high school in class, like the same mentality as on the mound, but it's, the day after the game, I'm still like dragging about, man, I didn't put the best performance out that I needed, or like riding a little too high on like, oh, look at me, like, look how great I did, whatever it was. Like, there is that divider that you do need. Like, and I think that portion takes a while to master, but it's something where it's like, if you get the ball rolling with that, like just getting more and more comfortable with it's super, super helpful. But what about you with when you were playing? Like, do you think you're kind of in the same boat as me where you never think you ever truly mastered it, but it's a portion of you that you definitely implemented and you didn't even really know about it at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had a cool nickname or a name for whatever I was doing,
Yeah.
honestly. I just think,
Yeah.
for me, it was just kind of like, I've always been pretty good at like kind of like separating like once I've stepped away from like competition,
Yeah.
like okay, what's my next couple hours look like? What's my next couple minutes look like, and everything. Um, yeah, I think that really helped me just be able to like, kind of like pour everything I could into
Yes.
those the 18 innings of baseball that you're going to play like in that day and everything. And so, yeah, I think for myself, I don't know. I don't think I ever mastered it, for the most part. I just think like every single time I stepped on the field, I was like, I kind of have to give it my all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you owe it to yourself. You're on the clock once you play college baseball. Like you get
Of
4 years.
course.
Some people
Yep.
get more, but yeah, you're supposed to get
Yes.
4 years.
Yeah.
You get 4 years, and like you give it your all because it's just like okay, once that first year is done, it's like hey, that's you're 25% done, and
Yeah.
then that
That's
twenty five
works your
percent
way there. Yeah.
flies by. Like you think about you do 25% of anything else in like your life, typically takes a while. It just flies by when you get into college sports and everything. So it's like for me, every single time I stepped on that field, I think that's why the uniform kind of became the the alter ego for myself, just because it's like okay, I'm here, I'm the baseball player today. Like it's like going out and just being able to like know what it means. Like if I'm not in class in a uniform, so it has to be different, right? Like I'm
Of
not
course.
in the calf in a uniform, it has to be different. So like when you get on the field, it's like you almost owe it to the garments you put on to kind of go out there and like give yourself some extra boost or anything like that.
Yeah. No. And I think you bring up a good point about the jerseys. And again, I know you mentioned it and brought it up. Like a lot of these ideologies that we're talking about are from a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. It's not like Matt and I created any of this. It's just in the book they talk about. He calls it like finding a totem or finding something that you put on you. And I think he used in the book. I think the example he uses is Beyonce with like Sasha Fierce, where she would put on clothing or something that made her feel confident, and then she's like, okay, now I can go perform. And it's like overcoming that performance anxiety where the jersey's a great one. I was the same way. I would have to put on my jersey the same way before each start, like very meticulously. And it's like, okay, when this is put on the correct way, I am now in my zone where I need to be, right? Like it's a trigger. That's another term he used, was like the trigger that you use, whether that's you're an infielder and you're taping your wrists, you're a pitcher, and for me it's like once my jersey's on, I'm doing my bands, I'm stretching, I'm getting ready. Like that's when you get ready. For whoever it is, it's you put your hat on and you're ready to go. Now you're a different entity. Like I know for me a big one was, especially in high school, was the hat, because like as a pitcher, it's like okay, I'm very particular about where I want my hat. I want it like right above my, in high school too, you're trying to be a little bit cooler than you are. So I'm like, okay, let's put the hat down, like try to cover the eyes a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was also the style then. But it's like, all right, once I get to the point where it's like, all right, this is comfortable, this is where I want to be, I'm in a different zone, I'm a different persona. It's like, okay, now I'm this person. Now I'm something separate. But yeah, and you mentioned too the like uh, Kobe with the Black Mamba. Like that's another thing that's brought up in the book. It's like the versions that we create, the personas, are the truest versions of ourselves during competition. Like you're saying, you're leaving it all out there. Like that's you. That's not something you made up because you think it looks good. And for me, being emotional, being passionate, leaving it all out there is the same thing. It's not about creating this thing that I think looks cool. It's about being the truest form of yourself and what you relate to, what you want to be, and what you strive to be. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with the process of like how do you create that persona, right? Like you asked me like when was that moment when you felt like you kind of had that and figured it out. I'd say like a big piece of advice that the book talks about is like be very descriptive about the traits that you want in this alternate persona, right? Like you could say, oh, I'm going to make this alternate persona, but if you don't know exactly what the traits are that you want, like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's not going to work out. It's not going to be significant. Like, a lot of that has to do with, look at some of your favorite players. Look at a movie. Like we talked about with JP on the one episode where it's like you can learn a lot from shows and TV, right? Like, there might be some lessons there where it's like, okay, I can pull this. You said the Superman. I know George Kittle has the thing where when he's on the field, he feels like he's the Joker, is what he says. Like, you can pull things that might not be completely related to your field, but that's the persona that you're trying to embody. It doesn't have to be this completely new thing. It can be like I'm going to be this superhero. I'm going to be X, Y, and Z. Like, you can take things from people, from things that you enjoy, because those are the traits that you do want to embody when you go into competition, when you go into your presentation, when you go into your highest level of performance, you know? So I feel like that's the most important, is like, all right, let's identify the traits that I want in the person that can succeed the most in whatever I'm trying to do.
No, and honestly, like when you think of like some of the real big stars that have their alternate egos and everything, like talk about the Joker, George Kittle, right? Like laughing when he gets tackled, like that's a competitive edge for himself, but it's also intimidating on the other team. You have Kobe Bryant, and like what traits does a Black Mamba have, right? Like they're deadly, they're killers, and like Kobe was clutch, like. He wants to take the shot. Like, he wants to be on the attack. Like, Sunday Tiger, that red shirt, let the competition know, like, it's over. Like, this is the last time. Like, you're just playing today. Like, he's winning today. So it's like, he puts that on, and, like, he knows, like, I'm now Sunday Tiger. But, like, he probably didn't walk in one day and call himself Sunday Tiger. He just wore a red shirt, won a major, and people are like, that's the red shirt, that's Sunday Tiger. But, it makes it intimidating for your competition, right? Like, I heard a really cool story. Mount St. Mary's had a pitcher last year, but his nickname was Thanos. So, like, but it became a thing in his conference, too, where guys are like, that's Thanos. So it's like they knew when the game was over, like, when he comes in, the game's over. Like, he's done. Like, you're done.
Inevitable.
He's inevitable. Like, that guy, he takes the ball, and you're done. Like, your day is over. How can you beat Thanos? Like, Sheesh. So it's like, it's cool stuff like that. Like, you might not even have to, you don't have to, like, if listener at home, like, you don't have to sit there and create your own nickname, right? Let it come, but, like, know what traits you want it to be in it. Like, what goes into all these great nicknames, these great alter egos and everything like that. Like, it's a player underneath all that, but it's the traits that they embody is what happens on the field, and how they act on the field is why that nickname is synonymous with who they are and everything like that.
I love the Thanos persona. That's cool. But like, our identities as a whole are shaped by like the stories that we tell ourselves and say about ourselves, right? So like the Thanos one, if you've ever seen any of the Avengers movies, like, he's like a bad dude. Like, that is not someone you want to mess around with. And again, he has the famous line where he's like, I am inevitable. Like, that's just crazy. That's cold. And as a pitcher, like, going out there and being a closer with that mentality is like everything. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of that is rewriting the narrative for yourself. You know what I mean? Like what I say, everything is just the narrative of the story we tell ourselves of who we are, what we want to be, right? Like, in that sense, like, he's not Thanos, obviously, but in that situation for that team, right? He's like, well, I need to be inevitable. I need to come in the game and everyone go, oh crap. Everyone freeze. Everyone do the, oh man. Like, everyone know that they're going to struggle with this a little bit. That's the narrative that you want to create. And every pitcher's different, right? There's like, some guys want to be silent assassins. Some guys want to take the Joker approach where they're laughing and chuckling and smiling. Some guys, shout out Mike Fisher, when we were at TCNJ, he would throw a changeup and a guy would swing over top and he'd just start chuckling. And then, like, some guys want to be, like, super cold and dialed and, like, emotional and screaming. Like, it's very you-based. And sometimes you can look at guys that you idolize and it's like, I like the energy that he brings. That's what I strive to do and be. But also sometimes that's not guys, right? Like if I went and told Kyle Hendricks that he should go pitch like, I don't know, Edwin Diaz, right? Like, very high energy, emotional, like screaming. And then Kyle Hendricks is someone that like I don't even think he's ever cracked a smile or a frown on the mound. He's just so like monotone. Like, that's just people are different. So I think the different persona you create has to be so unique to you and what you're striving to be that like you can also take like I want to be Thanos, but I want to add this to it, right? Like you don't have to be set in stone with one thing, right? Like you can model it any way that you want, which I think is the beautiful thing about this. It's like taking pieces of things that you like and creating your own form, almost your own person out of this, you know? Like
Yeah. I think that's a key. I mean, honestly, it has to be directed to you because,
yeah.
like you said, like if you're quiet and like you want to be like this loud like persona, probably out of your comfort zone, you probably don't have the traits to withhold that and actually make it like a believable thing to yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's an alter ego. It's a piece of you. It's a trait from you, and now you're just like trying to maximize its level. It has to come from you have to have it already, right? It's something that you can't just all of a sudden learn overnight or be like, wow, I really like, I really like Thanos. But if I'm not pumping 96, 98, like
Yeah.
I probably can't be Thanos. If I'm like a subby pitcher throwing, 72, 75, you're probably not Thanos because people aren't going to view you as Thanos. But like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
have this like big frame, you're 220 plus, you're throwing high 90s, like okay, that's something that you might not want to step in for. Like, and it goes hand in hand with the movie. You see Thanos show up on your planet, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. Oh no, here it comes. Yeah.
So it's got to be so, unique to you. Like that's why I also like out of the book. Like, you have the object aspect. Like if you have an object, you can make that part of your persona, or that can be your persona. Like I know my senior year, I had a Harambe sticker on the bottom of my bat, and it was just like, be physical, right? Be a gorilla. Go up there and like, what does a gorilla do? I'm not check swinging if I have Harambe on the bottom of my bat. Like, I'm not bunting if I have Harambe on the bottom of my bat. Like I'm coming up, I'm trying to do one thing. I'm trying to hit that ball as hard as possible, right? And so like that's my tool. So it's like when I step in the box, I'm like, I'm going to use this, and like I know what I'm going to do with it. So it's like I can put all my energy into like what I'm trying to do, my effort, my competitive edge is like I have this weapon and I'm gonna use it. And like that's why I like that part as well, because it's just like, you play these sports, especially baseball, you have a glove, right? You could be the vacuum. Like, you got, if you're a catcher, you can be something, that blocks everything, right? Something that throws everything out. Like there's a lot of different things you can be. You could be a bazooka because you have a cannon, right? Like you can be a lot of different objects because you literally have that object, right? And so it's like it doesn't always necessarily have to be, a nickname or something like that. Like the black mamba is a deadly animal. Kobe played a deadly game, right? So it's like, you can find these parallels within the traits to then find what my alter ego might be and everything.
No, I completely agree. And I think you put in an interesting point about like the creating it very unique to yourself. Like you mentioned, like the submarine closer versus like a big closer that might throw hard. Like if you create a persona and there's hesitation with it, like you don't feel like your true self, you don't feel natural in it, then it's never going to work. That's when you have to reevaluate that and be like, okay, this persona that I created might be great for somebody else, but for me, this isn't working, right? It's creating something that helps you perform past your fear, perform past any hesitation to your highest level. So whatever that is for each individual is super important. And I think a piece of that I kind of want to get your, I guess, opinion on too is going to be like pairing that with a level of self-talk, right? Like I think that was a big piece with the alter ego effect for me when I was like a senior in college was like, okay, I have this identity when I'm on the mound, right? This is me. This is what I want to do. My self talk on the mound then when I was pitching reflected that. I wasn't going to have my personal biases, doubts, fears leak into that, right? It's the self-talk then when you go on the field, the self-talk when you're in a presentation, like even at work, right? Like in my personal life, I'm like, I hate public speaking. I don't want to do this. This is gonna stink. But when you're in that mode and you're preparing and you're ready to go, it's like, no, like I'm prepared for this. There is no doubt, right? All the self talk is you're prepared for this. You're ready. You're gonna crush this. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the self talk aspect is just as important because if you go out there and again, you're Thanos, and then you walk one guy and then you go, man, I suck. I got to figure this out. Like that doesn't align. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it needs to align with the persona you're trying to be. Thank you for listening to the ARC podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, located on North Maple Ave in Marlton, New Jersey.
Tell them Matt and Brandon sent you. We appreciate all your support. Thank you for listening, and back to the podcast. No, 100%. I think that's kind of like the kicker, right? Like that's kind of the piece that ties it all together at the end of the day is like, how do you make it believable? Like you might hold these traits, but like you have to almost not convince yourself, but you have to like reinforce it, right? And like that's where that positive self-talk kind of comes in and everything. The self-talk about like what you are going to do, that is what brings the whole picture together. The Thanos example, like you said, if you walk one guy and you're kind of just like, oh man, like
Yeah.
that's not what that character does, right?
No.
And like,
Nope.
he's just like, okay, if I walk one guy, it's just like, okay, yeah, the next one is getting it, right? Like you're moving on to the next one, and so like, I think how you can kind of go about that is like really structure it. Really, I mean, honestly, like what do you want to be? And like, what if someone that you're watching is performing, right? And like, that is what you want to be. What do you think that person says to themselves? How do you think that person goes about their business? And like, what does it look like through success? What does it look like through failure, right? Like, what does it look like when it's just like, okay? Like, how do you think that person talks to themselves? And like, I'm sure a lot of people kind of find it being like consistent, right? Like, yet again, I mean, I love the Black Mamba persona. Like that was the coolest. I think that's probably the most recognizable one in sports.
Yep.
In a long time. But what would Black Mamba's a deadly snake? What would it say if it's hungry? I'm gonna go eat, right? Like, what would it say if it's full? It's probably like, all right, where's my next meal at, right? Like, it's continuing on this train of just like, okay, what is it now? How do I get to where I need to be at? And even if when I am at the top, how do I keep elevating it to higher level and everything like that? It's just, but it has to be positive, constantly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is practicing it because, like you said, it won't happen overnight, and you can't just be like, all right, game day Saturday, I'm going to implement this whole new thing and see how that works. Like,
right?
No, you have no idea. It's something that you need to gradually like. Whether I'm just going to use the example as a pitcher in fall practice, right? Your season's in the spring. You go out there, you have this image of this alternate persona that you want to embody when you're out on the mound pitching, right? That can't start in the spring. That needs to start in the fall when you're in competition, right? Like that needs to be every day at practice when you take the mound, right? When you're attacking hitters, you need to be there, you need to be present, you need to have that persona dialed in and ready because that's where you can make those edits. In season, that's going to be really tough to be like, oh, today I wanted to be Thanos, but actually next week I realized I align more with like Thor. You know what I mean? You're just like switching things up or like, oh, I actually just want to create this whole unique identity myself. It's like, oh, doing that in season is going to take a huge toll on you because it's like, imagine trying to create a whole new identity for yourself during a season, right? It's like that's blasphemous. That's crazy. But if you can implement that in practice, right? Think about that. In the fall, you throw once or twice a week. You have 8 weeks. That's 16 potential opportunities to practice that. I mean, by the time spring comes around and then you have all your bullpens in the winter getting ready for the season, that's you have like at least 30 opportunities to go in there and get better, right? And then it's like,
Right.
okay, now I can implement this mindset that I appreciate in the gym. Okay, now I'm attacking the gym like I do the same way on the mound. Like there's a lot of opportunities to practice it and feel it, but it's not something that you can just implement in game. And I think that's the big piece. Like you need the reps. It's just like anything else. It's like physical practice. It's in the gym. It's any other mental practices. You need to get in the reps before you can feel confident in utilizing it in game. You know?
Right. I agree. I mean, I think that's the biggest part. It's just like if you practice it as much as possible, like you're going to be able to execute it on a higher level, but also more consistently and everything. And I think on the flip side too, right? Like we're talking a lot about positive things. Like same thing with negative things. Like if you have bad or insecure thoughts, like that's going to be something that's going to take you down. The more you have that, the less likely you're going to be feeling yourself, and the more you're going to start to believe what those negative thoughts are. So it's not like it's not easy, but at the end of the day, it's just like the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and the more self resilient you become as well when you kind of go out and compete, practice, and everything like that. I know the opposite of like the alter ego effect is what it would be like insecurity, right? Like
Yeah.
that be
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
the thing. And so like if you're
I think they
insecure a
call it in the
lot,
book the trapped self is what they call it.
okay, so like it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
if you're just negative all the time, like you become the negativity. You start to believe what those negative thoughts are. Like if you're in a slump, like it's a slump because it's a negative trend, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a bad player. A bad player is a bad player.
Yes.
It's not a negative trend. A bad player going on a negative trend means like you stink, right? Like that's what other people would say about you, right? So it's
Yeah.
like
Yep.
when you're good and you go through a slump, they're just like he's going through like a tough time. But when you go through that, like how quickly you break out of it, obviously like part of this comes from a performance aspect. Like you have to go out and like get results, like from playing the game. But if you're being negative that whole time, like your slump goes from 1 game, 2 games, 3 games to 4 games, 4 games to 5 games, to a point where it's like you almost feel sorry for yourself, and you start to believe like this is now who I am, or this is what I've now become, and you get away. And I think that's why also it's just like it's so important. Like you don't have to have, like I said, a nickname on the alter ego effect, but something that brings you into competition, something that heightens your level of competition, something that makes you want to push that to a higher level and everything.
Yeah. I think you bring up a great point, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this because you mentioned the trap self and like the insecurity piece, right? So the book mentions that creating these personas actually can bleed into your personal life in a positive way, right? Like I know we talked about the importance of like splitting the two up for your own mental health, right? Like
Right.
if you're in that competitive drive at all times, it's going to take a toll on you. But separating that, there are definitely benefits. But I'd love to hear your opinion on like the book saying, when you create this alternate persona, like your personal life, you can also thrive because subconsciously those traits that you've developed that you respect, that you look up to, that you appreciate in this different ego, different identity, slowly subconsciously bleeds into our personal life. Like, how do you feel about that? And do you feel like that's been a part of your life in the past? Because I'll say from personal experience, like knowing you and knowing me, and I feel like again we talked about this, our our trajectories have been very parallel when we've been going through a lot of things in life. And I feel like in the beginning stages we were very quiet, a little insecure at times when we were like sophomores in high school, like a lot of trying to prove stuff, even into junior year of high school, trying to prove that you are worthy enough to play and whatever it is, right? Like, but then as we gained confidence on the field, there was a level of confidence that also came off the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think as we got going in like college and everything like that, like the more success we kind of had on the field, like that confidence started to ooze into like
Yeah.
personal life and everything.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think also the hard work aspect, right? Like, you know, very open about this. Not, I wasn't the greatest student in high school, but like
Yeah.
I get hurt and I have to go and do, you know, rehab, PT, and like you got to relearn mechanics. You got to relearn how to like throw and everything like that. And I think in that, I don't think it was a coincidence that after that injury, my grades went up. I had honors in college, right? Like I think like, it's something that kind of oozed into it because like when you're working through some of those things, it you have no choice really. Like if you want one thing, well you got to do something to get it, right? So it's like it's the same thing with the alter ego effect. Like if I'm going up there and like yeah I got Harambe on the bottom of my bat and I'm trying to do you know everything to like max effort, like I'm trying to hit the ball far, right? So like when I go in the classroom, I'm not just trying to like get by, like I'm trying to like do the most, right? Everything I do, and you know, granted, there's guys that play baseball well and get bad grades. I mean, like, but there's
Yeah.
other aspects of it that like they can go and like take that piece and like and go from there, right? So it's like I don't think it's a coincidence that you know the very best traits from the very best athletes usually goes and blends into like their actual personal life. Michael Jordan, he has Jordan Brand, right? Successful businessman. He was a super successful player, right? Like people look at him as like an owner and they're like, oh, well, you know, he didn't win with the Hornets. He didn't win with the Wizards. Like, okay, well, he has one of the most successful brands to ever walk
Yep.
this earth. And that came from him being a player. And the brand's after his last name. He was wearing
Yeah.
his own
Yep.
shoes
Yep.
in the NBA. And to this day, players want to sign with him,
Yes. Yep.
right? So it's like, you know, that aspect is just like the hard work and everything that he embodied as a player bled through, and now he's a successful businessman. And like no one should be surprised by that, right? Like I think that's really where those traits start to rise. Like once you kind of you see it and you're like, okay, I did this and I became the greatest player of all time. What if I take that same thing and start a business? It might not become the greatest business of all time, but more than likely it's probably going to be very successful.
I just thought of that same kind of ideology the other day. It's so funny because I saw a clip from The Last Dance where it was like Michael Jordan talking about the price it takes to be successful and everything, and Tim Grover, his trainer, came on and gave like an emotional kind of the same thing, like the price it takes, and he was willing and dedicated to do that. But like the success that Michael Jordan has had in the rest of his life, and if you watch the documentary, like they're like rolling like quarters at the wall and they're playing games, and like anything that was competition, he went in thinking like there was no doubt on his mind he was going to win. And I think the thing with his, whether he had an alter ego or not, right? Whether he had a different persona, like I know Reggie Miller called him like Black Jesus on
Yeah.
the documentary, and like that
Yep.
was like the different persona, I guess. But like whether at first, he created this thing where he now can thrive on the basketball court, right? Like then it didn't just become he's a good basketball player, it became that he's a winner.
Right.
Like that he is just synonymous with success. And that just bleeds over into anything else where someone said you want to play this game that you've never played before, and he's like, yeah, I'll beat you. Like it was no doubt because his persona was being a winner, it wasn't being a basketball player. You know what I mean? It's like that level of competition. And then like all the stories that they had of him golfing and playing, and like there's clips of him like messing with the guys on the course, like telling him he's going to beat them and do X, Y, and Z, like going and playing baseball, right? Like
Right.
it's all about being a winner. It's not about being a basketball player, which I think is really cool to see because you could tell on the court and off the court, he seemed like two different people just from the documentary. Like kind of wanted to be a little bit more isolated off the field, like very at times very zen, where he's like, all right, I'm just kind of doing my own thing. He's kind of getting tired of the on the field stuff, right? Like, but his persona was success and winning, not I'm the best basketball player of all time.
Yeah, and like it's crazy just how it transforms. Like when a little bit, obviously he's a high pick because his team was losing games when before he got there, right? And like
Yeah.
he starts to win, and then it's just like I'm gonna try baseball, and it's like okay, well, not everyone that wants to transition from basketball can just all of a sudden sign with a baseball team.
Yeah.
I believe he
Yeah.
made it to Double A, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very difficult to do. But you look on the flip side, right? You look at Tim Tebow, right? Like Tim Tebow won national championships and then doesn't make it in the NFL to what people thought he was going to make it to, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Won a playoff game. He was like, I'm gonna go and play baseball. I believe Tim Tebow got up to Triple A, right? And everyone was like, oh, it's terrible. He's not a baseball player. Well, at the end of the day, every team wants what? Winners. Guys that
Winners.
want to do what it takes to win, right? And like that's a piece of all of it. And if you're a winner and you make an ego off of that or you make a persona based in winning, like how can you lose at the end of the day? Like you're gonna do whatever it takes to win. And like that's just makes that stronger because honestly, like people think like, winning might not be a trait. It's a result, right? Winning is a trait, like because winners all have similar traits. So winning in itself is a trait, in my opinion. Like not everyone's a winner. There are certain people that can walk into places and they will lose, and there's other players that walk into places and they win. And there's a reason why, like you see these guys, like in professional sports, some of them are called glue guys. Like
Yeah.
they're role
Yep.
players, but when they go places, they win. Big Shot Bob, Robert Ory. Like he goes to a place, and all of a sudden, like he might be a role player that year, he might be a star that year. He gets on the court. What happens? He hits a big shot
Yeah.
every single time. Like no one should be surprised. That's his nickname because it's what he does. But based in that, if you're hitting big shots in crunch time, you're probably a winner. So when the Lakers got him, no shocker, they're winning. Spurs got him, they're winning. Like it's success leaves clues, and like a lot of these guys, like that's the trait that they have. Like they are cold blooded winners at the end of the day.
I heard a really funny story from I'll relate it, I promise, but it's from comedian Bert Kreischer, and
Okay.
he's talking about he was a baseball player growing up, right? And he said when he can remember when he was young, like elementary school, middle school, that he would go up to bat and it would be like bottom of the ninth inning, let's say, in his game, right? And bases were loaded, and like at first he felt pressure, like when he was little, and then his dad would tell him, like, oh buddy, like you thrive under pressure, you always succeed during that. And at that time there's no evidence to support that, but like he just kept saying it until it became true, where it was like now he's like I thrive for that. And now he's like he thrives for being on stage under the lights and doing that. But like subconsciously that self-talk of like you said, these guys that are like winners, they always hit the big three, right? It's like, how is that possible? It's, well, that's their mindset. The mindset is, I hit this three, that's what I do, right? Like, that's what they do. And it's the same thing, Bert Kreischer being a little kid, going up to the box and being nervous, but then you hear from your dad who's like, no, you thrive under pressure. I know you do. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I thrive under pressure. And then telling yourself that enough times, you believe it, right? Like
Right.
you understand it. That's your persona. That's who you are, right?
It's
That's
what you do.
the piece of you, right? That's the winner in you.
I love that. Honestly, that's awesome because it's just like you think of a child like they haven't even been in a pressure
Yep.
situation just yet, right? But like
Yep.
how it evolves after that, like, and you don't always have to start them young, right? But like you can be in that moment, and like the first time you're in that moment, yeah, it might be like you might have nerves, but like you go through it, it's like okay, it's behind you, and like I think a lot of people they tie that pressure in with success and failure, right? Like how can you not? Because like people be like, oh well, this guy doesn't play well, when the bright lights are on. This guy doesn't play well under pressure. Like this guy's a regular season player. He's not a playoff player and everything. Well, how you beat that, right? Like you need something to fall back on, especially if you haven't had success in that moment, because you can be a winner and not succeed all the time in clutch moments or in the last pieces of a game and whatnot. Because at some point, to become that, you have to be there, and all it takes is one time to succeed there. Like that's all it takes. You you see like you just got done March Madness, and like this
Yeah,
year there's not that many like heroes, right? Like but in years past you have the Cinderella teams, and there's usually one guy on that team that steps up, or maybe it's a guy on that team that had an okay year that all of a sudden the lights come on, like he's having a heck of a game. Well, he might think like, all right, I'm gonna have a good game today, and all of a sudden he drops 20. Next thing you know, he's like, I do this, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so then he gets to around the 32, and all of a sudden he's like, guys are like, oh, well, he had 11 in the regular season. He drops 25. He's like, I do this. And you go to
I
the next
do
round, you're
this.
like, oh, snap. Next thing you know, he's on
He
NBA
does
team's
this.
radar. And he does it. He goes and does it in the Sweet 16, does it in the Elite Eight, and he just does it over and over and over again. But it's just like all it took was that one time to be there and have success, right? Like, there's guys that have been there, now, especially with the transfer portal, and like in March Madness, you had a bunch of number ones, but some of those guys hadn't been in that moment, even though they were at your Dukes, they were at your Houstons, they were at your Floridas, they were at smaller schools where they might have gotten kicked out in the round of 64, they might have gotten kicked out in the round of 32, they might not have had the best game, and they were the guy on that team. But when they get to this new team, they got better players with them. They might be in a better system or whatever, but they make it work, right? And they're not just like, wow, I was at this small mid-major school, I shouldn't be here right now. Like they go out and they're like, nah, I got Florida on my chest. I'm a Gator now, right? Like they almost like start to believe it and everything. And I thought one of the coolest things was, March Madness gets done, Florida Gators, they win, and they quoted what like the 06 07 team said when like they won the championship at the end. But it's just like those guys might have watched those guys. They might have never known they were going to go to Florida. They might have been at a different school, and now they ended up at Florida. But it's like it's almost in the DNA of like the jersey at that point. Like
Yeah.
guys won in this jersey. I'm now a winner because I'm wearing this jersey,
Yes.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like you can get behind that and you can push everything you need into that to become a winner or succeed in that moment and everything.
Yeah, I mean that pairs perfectly with the idea of the totem putting on the jersey and you're a different person, different entity, and it's like you said, like maybe they came from a smaller school and it's like, all right, now I have the Gator jersey on. Like I am a Florida Gator, I am a winner, I am a competitor. Like it's just that simple shift that a jersey does. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to think about. That's nuts, but it's so true that like it can shift like that. Whether whatever it is, whether it's you putting on your jersey to go present, whether it's me putting on my jersey to go pitch, whether it's these guys putting on their jersey to go compete. Like it's that simple shift of like, okay, this ties into I've been training for the Broad Street Run, and it's a 10-mile run. But I kept continuously telling myself when I was doing this, I'm like, I'm not a runner. And then I actually heard kind of a quote or something funny where it's like, well, have you, in the context of running, it would be like, well, have you ran? It's like, yes, I'm training for this. Okay, well, then you are a runner. It's like that simple, right? It's like, are you like, do you play for the Florida Gators? Yes. Oh, you are a Gator. Like, you are a winner. It's that simple, right? It's the easiest little mind shift. But if you say like, oh, I'm not a runner. Oh, I'm a mid-major guy. I'm not a big school guy. Like that limiting belief can stop you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like it's the self-talk that we give ourselves when we're in that jersey, in that moment, that's going to help us propel past where we want to go.
That's awesome. I love it. I mean, honestly, like that's the thing. It's like you've ran before. So guess what, bud? You're a
Just
runner.
just keep going.
Just keep going. Something as simple as that.
It's easy. I think that's the biggest piece of that. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm training for a marathon or anything. But still, like, the biggest piece that I've had is like just keep doing it. Just continue. You are a runner. You are running, right? When you're in it, if I'm thinking I'm not a runner, man, this hurts. I'm not a runner, man, I'm tired. Like, no, you are currently running. That's what you are doing. Now, just continue and then finish. That's it. It's just another day. That's how I've been kind of viewing it. It's like, okay, I'm here. I have viewed that as more of like the silent assassin type, where
Yeah.
it's like headphones in, just run, don't say anything for an hour and a half, get it done, and then come back and you're good. Like that's it. It's just doing it. And then once you've done it enough times, come race day, come whatever, you'll be prepared and ready to go. And it's just like, oh, I've done this before. I do this. This is just the thing that I am now. Like,
Right.
I'm ready to do this.
Lace them up, headphones in, go.
That's it. That's
Yep.
it, right? Maybe a little stretch here and there. I'm getting a little tighter in my old age, but
A little
yes.
water too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but do you have any closing thoughts or like little pieces of advice for anyone, whether they're interested in the topic and they're like, maybe this is something I want to implement, or like anything else involved with this specific topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think just kind of like the key takeaways, just like keep it positive, right? Like you have to reinforce yourself with whatever you choose to go with, right? It's got to be you, like
Yeah.
it's got to be focused. It's got to be you centered. I can't be Brandon. Brandon can't be Matt, right? It's got to be
Yep.
about you. So
Yep.
whatever traits that you possess, try to lift up those best traits or the characteristics that are necessary to do what you need to go out and do, right? And then honestly, it really comes down to like, besides the positive talk, it's like the belief, right? Belief in what you've created for yourself. Belief that this is a trait that I feel comfortable with trying to elevate and everything. Like, don't try to be, loud when you're not loud, right? Like, if you're a loud guy, buy all into it. Be all into being the loudest guy. Like, if that's something that you need to do, right? And I think, practice. You brought up the point of practice. Like, you have to practice it. You have to do it in practice. You have to do it before practice. You have to do it during competition. But you can't let your faith waver on it at all. Like, once you choose it, stick with it and be all in with it at all times. At all times. I think that's kind of the key takeaways that, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about it, those are kind of the most important cruxes of what the alter ego effect actually is.
No, I completely agree. And I think just the last thing to wrap this all up is when you do find this and you do create this alternate persona and you're implementing it and practicing it, again, this will help you find the truest version of yourself, because you find what pieces of yourself, what characteristics you find most valuable and most important. And subconsciously, that does bleed into your personal life and you do implement them whether you know it or not, right? Like, those are things that you go, oh, I can embody this, right? You're creating this version of yourself that previously was just a thought. And now you're implementing it in your profession, in game, in competition, and seeing that and letting it materialize in real life helps you get confidence everywhere else. Helps you implement all of those characteristics that you really, strive and want to be a part of. So I feel like, just like you said, keep practicing, and ultimately it's going to help you find the truest version of yourself, which, we're all trying to find and strive for. So definitely. But awesome. That was a great conversation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate all of you guys. Matt, have a great night, and we'll see you again next week.
See you.